You are listening to AP Taylor Swift, the podcast for Swifties who are all about the lyrics. We're your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Muncie.
And I'm Jody.
And we are your unofficial professors of Taylor Swift.
Welcome back to another episode of AP Taylor Swift. And in fact, welcome back to season 3 of AP Taylor Swift. I guess this makes us juniors now. Although at some point we're going to have to stop with that bit because we're going to be like 8th year seniors and it's going to get...
What? We just go to college.
Yeah,
we can get
a
PhD.
Then
we change our name to PH Taylor Swift. Okay, fine.
We keep getting more degrees.
We do. That's for sure. We are so excited to be back for our 3rd season. It's a little unbelievable to think that we are still doing this or that it came this far when our very first episodes were like, let's just see if this works. But here we are. And for this first episode of our 3rd season, we are doing the topic of unreliable narrators. This is another one that we've had in our back pocket for a really long time, and I'm really excited that we get to dive in. Jen, you want to give us a little overview of what it means, unreliable narrators?
Yeah, so I pulled a definition from the Purdue College of Liberal Arts because it's my alma mater, so why not? But the definition is, I'll just read it, a narrator that is not trustworthy, whose rendition of events must be taken with a grain of salt. So we tend to see such narrators, especially in first-person narration, since that form of narration tends to underline the motives behind the transmission of a given story. So essentially, unreliable narrator is what it says it is. It's a narrator who you cannot rely upon. And it's often used in a lot of suspense. I think that's where people will think of it most commonly, where it's used as a really strong literary device of you, because we tend to, you read a book that's first person, you watch a movie, whatever it may be, you tend to trust the narrator. That's just kind of what we do as humans. So if that narrator is not reliable, especially in like a thriller like Gone Girl, so Amy Dunn and Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, you sort of trust her, you sort of think the story's going a certain way. It's a great way to pull the rug out from the audience at a certain point and just flip everything upside down and kind of have that aha moment you sometimes get in mysteries and thrillers. But it can also just simply be a narrator who you just don't trust. Like Nick Carey in Great Gatsby starts out saying, oh, I would never judge anyone, and then immediately starts judging everyone, and it should make you as a reader say, well, I don't think I can trust you because you're saying you're one thing and then you're doing the other thing, so what else can I not trust? What else is Nick getting wrong? What else is Nick maybe intentionally lying about? We don't know. I don't know if Nick is doing as much intentionally lying as much as just leaning into his own biases. So it kind of can do both, a little bit of suspense or just kind of a like, you are limited to your own point of view, so you do not have a full picture of the story that you are trying to tell.
Yeah, I feel like when I learned about unreliable narrators in high school, it was Holden Caulfield and Catcher in the Rye.
Yes.
That was, I mean, I think we were
Yes.
in 9th grade and learning,
Absolutely.
but even at that point, 9th grade English class, learning about what is an unreliable narrator and why is this teenage boy unreliable really says something about us as 14, 15-year-olds as well. And this idea that you only know your own perspective and we are clouded by our own experiences and perspectives, and in some cases naivete, right? When you're an outside observer, you have to think more critically about, why is this person saying what they're saying? Is that the only view or perspective on this situation? And so it's not necessarily sometimes unreliable purposefully. They're not trying to be purposefully deceptive or unreliable, but sometimes just life experience, naivete, in a sense, creates this unreliable narrator perspective.
Yeah, arguably we are all unreliable narrators
Correct.
anytime we tell a story.
Yes. 1,000%.
I think one of the key traits is definitely how you don't have all the information, and the unreliable narrator only chooses to tell you one side of the story or tries to they deliberately omit information. And I think what will be really interesting as we're going through the songs is to really understand what technique Taylor uses or the songwriters use that tip us off into making us feel like this is an unreliable narrator. Because I think one thing that I'm interested in is, what are the hints when you're reading that kind of give it away? Like, what are the first moments when you start to realize it's an unreliable narrator? With a lot of the books that we read, it's it's obvious, like, you just always assume that you can't trust the person who's telling the story, but sometimes there's these aha moments that tip you off. They're like, "Oh, like, this is" Gone Girl is a great example where there's, like, a very definite big moment where you're like, "Oh, shit."
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like you get another perspective, another speaker, or sometimes you get some sort of discrepancies in the story. There's some misalignments in what's happening. So I think it'll be fun to kind of go through the songs and see like what are the things that kind of tip us off. One thing that I wanted to add also is that when I was looking online, I saw that there are 3 different kinds of unreliable narrators. There are probably more than this, but just like a quick search was revealing like sometimes there's a deliberate unreliable narrator that's trying to mislead you and lying and omitting information on purpose. Sometimes there can be an unintentional unreliable narrator where they just distort and misinterpret the events because they have their own biases and they have their own issues, and that's what's grounding what they're sharing. And then sometimes you have naive narrators, like imagine children or just people who don't have a full understanding of the events, and therefore they're telling you a version of the story that has just gone through a filter, so to speak, because it's not fully developed because they don't have all the information.
Yeah, I think The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is another
Yes.
example of probably the last two, a mix of like unintentionally unreliable as well as naivete. It's a child's perspective. And I think it's a great story that shows kind of unreliable narrator come to life and what that looks like. It's the innocent version of Gone Girl.
Yeah, I was thinking also of the like Bryony in Atonement. Like the
Oh, yeah.
narrator, not only unreliable as a child, but even as an adult telling the story.
Yeah, I mean, also anyone telling a story of their childhood, there's going to be unreliable. But actually, to that, the only other example I wanted to point out was the Apple TV show After Party. The premise of that show is there's a murder that happens at an after party, and then the cops come in and have everyone give their statement. And when they give their statements, they retell that night, but every statement's a different genre, which is just a really fun visual
Oh, that's so
storytelling.
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it intentionally or unintentionally really tapped into this unreliable narrator thing because everyone truly believed the version of the story that they told. It's just how they experience life. So one
Mm,
of them had a crush on a girl. So for him, it was a rom com. And another guy saw himself as an action hero. So it was this
I
like
love
really
that.
epic action film. And none of them were, well, one of them, the murderer, was lying, which is an interesting game to get to play as well. But for the most part, they were all telling the story as they saw themselves, as they saw everyone else. So in every single story, different people were the villains and were the good guys because of who
Mm,
they were friends with and who they didn't like. So that's also if you want a non-book kind of more modern version. It was a really fun way to play with the idea of who's telling the story and who do we trust? We don't really know because with each episode you're like, well, who is the bad guy? Because every
right.
different person has a different version of events here.
I love that. That's kind of similar to The Residents as well, which was on Netflix, a Shonda
Yeah.
Rhimes.
Yeah, all the murder mystery shows, but I love the idea of like different genres. I
Oh,
think
it's
that speaks a
so
lot
Yeah.
to
fun. Yeah.
how different techniques can totally shift the medium or the thing that you're working with.
Well, speaking of different mediums with unreliable narrators, we get into
Yes.
it?
Yeah, so I have the first one. I wanted to talk about You Belong With Me. So that was written by Taylor Swift and Liz Rose. Originally came out in 2009 on Fearless and again in 2021 on Fearless TV. And it actually came to mind for me, After Party specifically came to mind because this is really a rom-commy song. So we'll get into some of the lyrics, but if we did an after party esque show about this experience from her point of view, it's a rom-com and the story is her saying, hey, you're with this girl, she doesn't get you, I'm the one who gets you, we should be together. Very sweet, very innocent, very kind, and like loving to this teenage boy. If we told this story from maybe the other girl's perspective, it might be like a horror thriller of like, this girl is stalking my boyfriend.
I love this. I never thought of this song this way, but it makes so much sense.
And I want to also note too that I love this song. It's a teenage crush song, so it's gonna come across as a bit naive and oversimplification. Like that's the point of it. So like my goal is not to ruin the song. Sometimes I want to ruin songs. Stay, stay, stay. I want that song to be ruined for everyone. This song I don't want to ruin. I just want to point out let's get into some of the lyrics. Things like, you're on the phone with your girlfriend, she's upset, she's going off about something that you said because she doesn't get your humor like I do. Let's pause for a moment as
You're
adults and think
so
about this.
right.
So he's talking to his girlfriend. He makes a joke that she goes off about. Now, the narrator of the song is implying that it's a funny joke and she doesn't get it. As an adult and looking back at this, I'm thinking, did he make a sexist joke or just some garbage teenage boy
Yeah, just a
joke?
bad joke.
And his girlfriend was just like, "No, don't say that." Like, we don't know what the joke is.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't a joke, right? She
Yeah.
doesn't get your humor. Maybe he thinks he was joking,
Yeah.
and she was like, "That was really mean."
Yeah, exactly. And so if we go into this
I'm already loving this.
if we go into this unreliable narrator mindset, some of this is unintentional, but I would argue that in this song, she's very actively trying to position this as you're with the wrong girl and I'm the right girl. And so the details we're getting in this story are she doesn't get your humor. We don't know what the joke was. We don't know what the conversation was. We don't know what the context was. We're very intentionally being given the details that make us think, oh my God, she doesn't get his humor, but the narrator does. So obviously that's the better match. So kind of it reminded me a little bit of that Nick Carraway point of view thing where Nick really loves Gatsby. Whether it's romantic or not, I don't know. Go back to our Great Gatsby episode. We discussed it a little bit, but Nick does love Gatsby. That's clear. So most of the story makes Gatsby kind of seem like a good guy, and we have to wonder, was he actually, or did Nick just really love him and want to make sure he came out looking like the good guy? The narrator here wants to make sure she comes out looking like the right fit for this guy. And then to go on with that, all we really get about this other girl is that she went off about something he said. She wears heels. She's the cheer captain. And maybe she sucks, but we don't really know. We are very clearly being told right away, hey, the story that you listener need to know is that they don't belong together. I belong with him, and let me show you all of the evidence that proves that argument, and we don't need to worry about any evidence I left out because it's irrelevant. This is the evidence that matters to this story. Jody's dying
I
laughing.
love this. Well, I'm
I
even
love
saying, like,
it.
you've got a smile that can light up this whole town. I haven't seen it in a while since she brought you down. Like, the assumption is that it's this other girl that is the
Yeah,
problem for everything. Hey, what you doing with a girl like that?
It's
exactly.
very pointed. It kind of reminds me of the deliberate unreliable narrator in that
Hmm.
Yeah.
she's specifically building a case to show that this
Yes.
girl is the enemy. That's been the agenda from the start, right? So now we're finding any and all evidence to point to that and push the reader, the listener in that direction.
Yeah, and it's interesting again because this is a sweet teenage thing. Like I know those feelings. We've all kind of been there, and I do think there's intentionality in it. But then if we put it into the context of a teenager, I also think there's some intentionality, some unintentionality, and then I think there's a lot of naivete where she so
Yes.
truly believes that this person belongs with her that she's almost convincing herself a little bit, and it's like
Right.
where those lines cross, I don't know. Teenage hormones don't make those very clear lanes to swim in. And I just think that the thesis of her argument in the song is that if you could see that I'm the one who understands you, you belong with me. Like those kind of lyrics. And is she the one that understands him? Like I was trying to think of one fun way to do unreliable narrator in stories not like Gone Girl. Like Gone Girl, we know what happens. We kind of get that figured out. But when you're in the point of view of a narrator where you're like, what if we wrote Great Gatsby from Daisy's point of view? What would that
Mm,
story look like? And I just, as I was going through this, I was like, there's a version of this story where this
yeah.
guy, like maybe his parents are going through a divorce and he's going through a really hard time, and he's like kind of just going through some making bad jokes and just really struggling, and Taylor's decided, well, this girl's brought you down, but he just hasn't mentioned his parents' divorce or something. Just trying to think of a very like teenage what kind of thing could happen. And obviously we don't know, but like that's a really interesting mind experiment to go through and say, well, from the other girl's point of view or from the guy's point of view, And I also wanted to bring that up because Taylor herself does that in folklore. We get the love
Yes, that is
triangle from the
correct.
different point of views, and you are kind of on the side of each person who's singing the song of like, oh, I understand your point of view now. And they all really think that they're, I mean, in Betty, he thinks he apologizes and he's trying to win her back, but like they're all so sincere in their points of view. But if you listen to just one of them, you'd be like, "Oh, these other two people are the
Or
enemies here."
assholes. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So she does. I just thought that was. I considered doing those, and I was like, "Well, I actually think You Belong with Me is like the start of it. You get one point of view in a love triangle, and then later on, Taylor was like, "Oh, let's play with the different point of views."
Yeah, I think we always run the risk of an unreliable narrator when
for
it's
sure.
first person.
Yep,
I think that we'll see that in a lot of these songs where it's like maybe not intentional, but in this one also, I do think that, especially if you take the music video into account as well, because we actually have the song and a video. And so that storytelling really takes on a different layer because it's very clear that you have this person who is just kind of interfering in between this other relationship with bad intentions. It's very clear that she has a desire that she wants, or she has an outcome that she's going for, and she's telling this entire story coming from that perspective. So it's a little bit more than just like, oh, this is my side of the story and it's not intentional. Like in this case it feels intentional.
yeah. You said it too, and I said thesis at one point. Like she's building an argument. She's like, "Here's what I want
Yeah,
you to believe, and here's all the evidence for it." But let's put it in a fun, sweet teenage boppy song that I still love.
right.
This is to me,
Oh, yeah.
this makes the song better. Like, yeah, girl, you build that argument.
The perspective and could only work in childhood or teenage years. Like if you think of these as adults, you're like, you are a stalker. This guy needs a restraining order
For
against
sure.
you.
Yeah. If a
Driving through
35-year-old
like
was like, "This is"
Heaven forbid we flipped the gender. That would
Oh my
really
goodness.
drive home
that
the
would really
stalkerness.
be a problem.
Yeah.
A
Well,
problem.
there's the in How I Met Your Mother, which not all of it aged super well, but there's one thing that I think about all the time. They talk about, I forget the name of it. It was like the Doppler Dahmer effect, where someone doing a big romantic gesture, like in some famous movie, you
Oh,
holding
yeah.
up the radio. That if you're into the person, that is
It's
super
cute.
romantic. If you're not into the person, that is
Creepy.
terrifying. And
Creepy.
exactly. And I thought about that with this song of like, we think of this as super romantic. She's in love with this guy. But if he's not into her, this is a horror film of a song, Like,
We're gonna bring this back for a Halloween
girl,
episode.
yeah. But I think about that all the time from How I Met Your Mother. Like, they put that so well of the how you perceive someone's actions is determined by how you
How you
feel
feel
about that
about them.
person, basically, which makes sense and is reasonable, but it's like you could put the song in a minor chord really quickly if the guy
Oh,
is
I was
like, girl,
thinking about
no.
that. If it wasn't a poppy song, it would be a very creepy song.
Yeah. Someone who's better than music with us, this would be a very fun
That's
song
not our yeah, we
like
focus on lyrics. One day we'll there's season 4.
or like re-edit the music video to be like a horror film music
Just have to
video.
oh, I feel like that we could do, we could give it to AI and be
Yeah.
like, "Make this into a horror film." I asked ChatGPT, "I need you to redo Taylor Swift's song You Belong With Me as a horror film. What would you change?" Pop song the cheerful rom-com POV changes to unreliable narrator, first person camera. An introverted band geek records obsessive vlogs about the boy next door.
That's so good though.
Two-way surveillance. She rigs cameras pointed at his window. Her walls are covered in stills tracing his every move. You've got some distorted late night voicemails. The voice on the line glitches. Sometimes it's her, sometimes it's copied snippets of his girlfriend's voice stitched together. Identity theft and skin wearing motif. The rival's clothing and later her appearance becomes
Yes.
trophies in the protagonist's hidden closet.
Wait, but in the music video, she does play the other girlfriend too, so that would be
Correct.
and that's fascinating.
Homecoming bloodbath under stadium lights. The halftime show is choreographed chaos. Tubas echoes like air raid sirens while costume dancers disappear one by one beneath the bleachers. Okay. Reverse shot shock ending. He finally notices her in the rearview mirror as she emerges from the truck bed, face lit by flashing police cruiser.
Oh my gosh.
She hacks the school's PA system, piping subliminal whispers, "You belong with me," between bells.
All right. Well, let's ruin another song.
I don't this one might not be as controversial
Famous last
maybe,
words.
or maybe it's a little obvious from the start. Yeah, who knows? Okay, let me get into it. I picked Mr. Perfectly Fine. It was also on Fearless, but it came out as a part of Taylor's version in 2021. And I immediately thought of this song when we first thought of this topic because to me, there's first of all, there's a lot of things in quotations in this song. And so, yes, all of Taylor's songs are in first person, but anytime she puts quotes in there, you really know she's coming at it from the speaker perspective. And one thing that I was really interested in is if there's a moment where there's suddenly a change that I notice in the story that kind of tips me off to the unreliable narrator. And I think one thing that was interesting was she says, Mr. Never told me why. Mr. Never had to see me cry. Mr. Insincere apology so he doesn't look like the bad guy. Goes about his day. He's forgets he's ever even heard my name. Well, I thought you might be different than the rest. I guess you're all the same. That's all fine and dandy. She says that he goes about his day, whatever. And yeah, that seems really cruel. But then immediately after, we get the line, because I hear he's got his arm around a brand new girl. I've been picking up my heart. He's been picking up her. And I never got past what you put me through, but it's wonderful to see that it never fazed you. She hasn't even seen him with the girl. It's a rumor. She heard from someone else. I hear he's got an arm around a brand new girl. And this entire ire of a song, all of these feelings are coming out because she hears from someone else that he's moved on, and that's causing her to feel a particular way. So for me, this was really a moment where I'm like, wait a second, there's a rumor, and that's what's caused this spiral. And so the fact that we now know a motive for the speaker, like the speaker is hurt because of the fact that she thinks the other person has moved on before her. And she thinks that she's still in agony and really torn up about this and really effective. And this guy seems to be fine because he's moved on. Now I have a reason for understanding where this person's coming from. So to go back to earlier different types of unreliable narrators, I think this one might be unintentional, but at the same time she's clearly biased and being influenced by these feelings that she's having because of this particular moment in time. Later on in the song, we also have these lines of so far above me in every sense, so far above feeling anything, and you really get these insecurities coming out from the speaker. And so you see that not only is the speaker hurt, she's insecure and she feels she's very affected by the fact that this person may have moved on. But we don't know the other guy's
Right.
story. We have no idea. We don't know Mr. Perfectly Fine's
Right. Her
story.
perspective is that he's perfectly fine because she hears that he's moved on, but we don't actually know what's gone on
Right.
for him or if he actually has moved on. There's so much unknown
Yeah,
here.
rebounding is a
Yeah.
thing. He could be moving on, but
Not
like
really.
not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an assumption. It's all
Yeah,
assumptions
exactly.
here.
And I mean, I think to some degree by putting it in quotes, it is the first
Right.
tip off that you're getting very much one perspective. But the fact that it's an entire song and so confidently put out, it can be really tempting to just think that this is the truth. This guy moved on really fast. And the reality is we don't know.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, is this a song we think that she wrote trying to represent a longer period of time, a moment of time, blah blah blah. This feels like a little bit more of that moment in time where like
Hmm.
you get that text from your friend and you're like, he moved on, okay, and you're like, this is like that moment of
Right.
anger. And we don't know obviously, but if you ask this narrator a week later if this was true, there's a very good chance that narrator would be like, oh, I don't know, it's
Yeah. That's how I
complicated,
felt.
breaking up is
Yeah.
complicated, I was really mad.
Right, it's kind of like a
Yes.
rant,
Oh,
Yeah,
right? Like she
exactly.
literally goes into
totally.
it's a shame. It's such a shame that this had to be this way. It's like she really spiraled and goes into this
This
long
is
elaborate
a
spiel, but
youthful version of the smallest man who ever lived.
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, I always love the line, how's your heart after breaking
Hmm.
mine, one just kind of a
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
line, but kind of it just yeah, the implication there's sometimes that implication that dumping someone means you're perfect again, you're perfectly
Right.
fine and they're heartbroken, but breaking
It's
up with
hard.
someone can also be hard
Right.
for you, but she clearly thinks that that wasn't true and we don't know from the other person's point of view
It's
necessarily.
also like the villainizing is so petty to some degree, right? Like she's accusing him of being well dressed. Like, how dare you be put together, so dignified in your well pressed suit, so
Yes.
strategized. It's like he's just dressed well. It's not
Yeah.
intentionally. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and he's so smug, Mr. Always wins. Does that mean like he wins every fight? Is he just unwilling to say he's right? Or
Right.
if someone says the other person wins every fight you have, I'm like, that's a big thing to unpack here. Like, what does
Yeah,
that mean?
anytime you have always,
Yes,
never,
yep.
these extreme words, the superlatives, you have to be kind of on edge. And then I think there's the irony of the fact that the song is a bop. It's fast, it's upbeat, like a happy kind of song. So for someone who's accusing the other person of being perfectly fine and saying that I'm a mess, it's like, okay, but you've written this gleeful song, so what's really the situation, because it's kind of a happy song.
I have another potentially happy song that is not necessarily very happy. If we want to move on to mine, I took a pivot from Fearless Land, a hard pivot actually, into the Tortured Poets department. But Daddy, I Love Him. This is track 6, written by Taylor Swift and Aaron Dessner, and it came out in 2024. And we've talked about this song in our summer school series back between seasons 1 and 2. We've never deep dived or like talked about this song otherwise, but what we've talked about before is how this song feels like a kind of similar version to Love Story, but like a more grown up version. But the difference really comes to life when I look at it through the perspective of an unreliable narrator, because here we just talked about two songs, unreliable narrators from a teenage perspective. So from that perspective of innocence and naivete, which we know, happens a lot with youthful narrators, this is not necessarily a youthful narrator. This is an older narrator, potentially we know because she's talking about having a baby. So she's probably not a teen. I guess it could be a teenager. We said Love Story was a teenage love pregnancy song. Okay, I get it. But
Yeah.
anyway, there are some hints.
She's still
I
angry
am.
about that.
It's been a very long
It's
time.
been like 2 years
I'm glad
Okay,
you
almost.
brought
moving on.
it
I'll
up.
never bring up Love Story again. The speaker, this narrator in But Daddy, I Love Him, presents herself as the victim of others' judgment. But she's also in the song revealing details that suggest that maybe their concerns are actually valid. But there's so much disdain in this person's narration. It's again a first person narration, and we see everybody else, all the society people and the relationship, just from her perspective. And so she's really positioning the song and the story as a classic case of misunderstood young love. But when you go through some of the lyrics, you really start to see, wait a second, is this misunderstood young love? Have you actually examined any of the concerns that these people are bringing up? Because there is just so much defensiveness and convincing herself that this is what's going to make her happy and this relationship will make her happy, almost just because of the disapproval of others. It's almost as if someone saying, no, this isn't good for you, makes her say, yes, it is, without really thinking about, do I actually want this? Is this good for me? And so that unreliability of the narrator really comes through a lot for me through this defensiveness, through focusing on what others think and proving them wrong and not listening to them, as opposed to maybe focusing on your partner and why all these people disapprove. So she's never actually defending her partner, nor does she actually prove all of the vipers wrong. And if we go into some of the lyrics, you see right away this us versus them mentality, because she's talking about she calls them these people. Actually, if we go even further, the very first line, I forget how the West was won, She's saying she's forgetful. Like,
Yeah.
I forget if this was ever fun. So immediately we have this sense of maybe we're not remembering everything that we should. Take it with a grain of I would take that with a grain of salt because you don't really have enough context. And spoiler alert, we will be deep diving this song, so we will go further into that. Another couple of things, like she tells us outright that she is an unreliable narrator. Monsi, you mentioned earlier in our introduction, like there are often these hints to the unreliability. She says in the chorus, screaming, "But daddy, I love him. I'm having his baby. No, I'm not, but you should see your faces." So she is telling us that she is
Sh-
unreliable.
She she gets joy
So much
from
joy.
shocking
So much
people.
joy from she's purposefully playing with people. And again, I go back to she is focusing so much on proving people wrong, on pissing people off and just being contrarian, as opposed to at any point in time examining why do they say these things. Instead, she says, well, they're trying to cage me. These Sarahs and Hannahs clutching their pearls, they're judging me. They slammed the door on my whole world, the one thing I wanted, with ever asking why. Instead, she just says, I'm not coming to my senses. I know he's crazy, but he's the one that I want. That we get very few hints of what her actual perspective of her partner is. I know he's crazy, he was chaos, he was revelry, but really it's mostly on like she is so angry at everybody else for telling her how to feel and that he's not good enough for her that she never actually seems to address their concerns. She's just so defensive and we never actually get, okay, have you looked deeper, right? Similar to Jen, how you were saying, like, what is everybody else's perspective? If this was written from the perspective of the Sarahs and the Hannahs, I'm very curious what their concerns would be and also how they would communicate their concerns. From this narrator's perspective, it's vicious, it's saboteurs, it's vipers, it is mean and mean spirited and cruel. Is that actually the case? We don't know because we're seeing everything from this narrator's perspective.
Yeah, I actually really like the hints that you talk about in the song of realizing that she revels in the
Hmm.
shock factor, the fact that she forgets or she's acknowledging from the beginning that she forgot a part. Like there are actually really these are very tangible, solid hints that are making me see the song in a new way because I'm like, oh, like I feel like the song is an empowerment anthem, and all of us have spent like our summers
Hmm.
screaming it, whatever. And you feel like the sense of ownership and, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
empowerment.
because she really positions the others as look, God save the most
Yeah,
judgmental creeps who say what they want, what's best for me.
yeah,
Like she really
but
positions the others as awful people. They could be. I'm not saying they're not.
yeah, but the deliberate hints throughout the song that she's trying to get a reaction, that she's doing these things, like the details are fuzzy, like I don't even know what really happened, but like this is the feeling that I'm going after, is really interesting because and we're going to deep dive this, so I'm excited to get into it. But it's like whenever the speaker or the writer makes these choices of using these words, it's like Taylor's a masterful
Hmm.
storyteller, and these are decisions that she has
Right.
made to tell the story,
Correct.
and so there's definitely that undertone of the unreliable narrator.
Nothing, Jen.
You did great. I keep looking through and I'm like, I have nothing to add. Like that, yeah, you got it.
I just like looking at this song from a different perspective because I agree with you, Monty. We see and have sung this song as an anthem to defying the haters and the wine moms and really villainizing the wine moms and the elders and society. But oh, you stop for a second. You're like, wait a second, are they
Am
that
I
bad?
the
Am
drama?
I-
Yeah, the only and this I think sort of gets into some deep dive stuff more
Mhm.
than unreliable narrator. The thing I think is one of the most interesting things about the song is it creates a protagonist and narrator that I think if you said to this narrator, "Have you ever thought about this?" that she would just give you the middle finger and be like, "I don't care."
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's like, what if
exactly.
they're right? And even she's setting up the character as someone who could say, "Hey, 5 years from now, if I find out they were all right, I still don't care. I still would make the choices I
She's
made.
a
Like,
bit
it
of an
doesn't matter."
anti-heroine in that
Yeah.
respect.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, like, culturally, there's a lot of pride that people take in going against the grain and, like,
yeah,
doing their own thing and being contrarian. And the flip side to that is, well, is that necessary? Like, is there something there? Like, is there something to be said about the
right.
people? They're always
Not everybody is out to get you.
not listening. Yeah, not everybody's out to get you. Like, sometimes people do have your best interests at heart. Like, we are a community. We're communal. Like, humans are meant to be social creatures, and you're deliberately getting joy from, being that loner, and being against the community. So
Yeah, and I mean, she sets the fact that she uses this kind of small southern town setting immediately, I think, predisposes us to be like, oh my gosh,
I
those
love that we just assumed it was a southern town.
the daddy
I
always.
know I didn't. Yeah, we've talked about this
We're gonna
before.
get into this is deep dive
Right.
territory.
Well, but the fact that she does that as the unreliable narrator is setting up, saying she's making an immediate comparison to this town of elders and wine
Right.
moms. She's using these characters that we are likely to already be like, back off. It's not saying, "Hey, my best friend's a little concerned here." Like,
Right.
that's not what she's saying. She's saying the elders. So these old men are telling me what to do, and they can go
She's
away.
immediately creating an us versus
Yeah.
them
Yes, exactly.
mentality. And I feel like anytime we have that, you have to have like your unreliable narrator alert hat
Yeah.
go off. Like,
Antennas
wait
up.
a second, is this really us versus them? Like, let's
Right.
unpack why we feel this opposing force so strongly, because there's like that often says more about you than it says about the other person. Well, with that, I think it'll be fun to unpack this song as a deep dive. So that's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Join us next week as we go into a line by line analysis of But Daddy, I Love Him. That's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Be sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on your social channel of choice at AP Taylor Swift to stay up to date. And join us next time as we overanalyze and deep dive into the next Taylor Swift song on AP Taylor Swift.